Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, on this smashing Sunday for another daily cryptocurrency market update. If you are new around here, please do consider becoming a subscriber, as we release a video just like this every single day at 1 p.m. UK time, where we try and keep you up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space. We also take a technical look at it, and we don't only do that, but we correlate other markets to it. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. We're going to be looking at a number of things. We're going to be talking about the general sentiment right now going into September. We're going to be looking at September's historic performance. And we're actually going to be looking at other months, like, for example, the month of January and, of course, the month of March, along with August and September, which are typically the worst months for Bitcoin, and also December. And we're going to be looking, of course, December is still to come. August has just passed. We're now in September. We're going to be looking at if seasonality has been applicable to this year so far, and should the seasonality and the kind of tradition or probabilities based on how Bitcoin has performed in September in the past be applied to where we currently are today. So we're going to be doing a bit of that. We'll be looking at the Bitcoin chart. You guys know my thoughts, and we are very open, a lot more open, I would say, more so than many other channels in regards to my own personal positioning. We kind of put it all on the line in regards to saying that we're in the market or saying that we're out the market. And of course, we're happy to be wrong, of course, at my own expense. But you will all know that I still believe the crypto revival is well and truly here. And I actually do not think the Bitcoin chart looks that bad at all, certainly from when we made the call to get back into the market. Altcoins are a bit of a different story. Ethereum's still elevated from January. Something like Polkadot, which we're a fan of, something like Link, have essentially just gone sideways since the start of the year. Which is certainly better than them doing this, which we stayed out of. But we're going to be talking about all that. I really want to just talk about, is the kind of bearish rhetoric that I'm seeing really that warranted at the moment? And perhaps it is in cases, but perhaps isn't in others. It's really my belief that you're not going to see 2008 style crash, which is coming based on the yield curve, till later on down the line. And I think crypto does very well from now until then, along with the stock market that we've been very right on, and a number of other things. The thorn in our side at the moment is the dollar. That needs to slow down. I do think you've got some interesting things coming up. You don't have CPI this week. We'll look at some CPI expectations in this video. You've got CPI next week. But we'll look at interest rate pricing, everything to do with that. And then I'll probably finish the video off just talking about why you should be paying attention to blockchain right now and interested. Buying in 2023 is going to be similar to buying in 2019, late 2018, in my opinion. And you are going to set yourself up, just like I did in the previous bear and bull, for potentially some life-changing opportunities. Now, that's not an endorsement. It doesn't have to happen, but that's my personal belief, and certainly something that I'm preparing for. If you want to find out what I'm buying and where I'm buying it, please do consider becoming a patron. We've got lots of interesting things, both for Patreons and for you guys. We're developing tools that are totally going to be free to use for you guys to actually gain greater insights into the crypto space, and also ways to do things like, track what it is you're doing, where other companies charge for it, or they perhaps sell your data on. We're going to not do any of that, but give you a kind of free platform to do weird and wonderful things on. But that's all coming probably a little bit mid-September. Let's get into the video. Let's not continue to promote myself and what it is we're doing. Of course, Rektember is upon us. Or is it going to be Rektember? Well, that's the real question that we're going to be asking and answering in this video. So right now, Bitcoin's price action on the short term doesn't fill us with much excitement. However, you are still adhering to market structure, which is an uptrend that we call beautifully. Bitcoin from the start of the year till now is up 53%. And we'll look at the total market cap and things like that, and total 2, total 3, which are bleaker than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's really gained a lot of wind behind its sails due to everything going on. And we are on the cusp, ladies and gentlemen, of institutional recognition for Bitcoin and thus the space. You will end up with altcoin ETFs. You will end up in the future with basically everything being onboarded and ran on a blockchain. And we'll play a clip of that towards the end of the video. We'll also talk a little bit about what Swift and Chainlink are doing. But I don't think the picture is as bleak as people are painting. I really don't. And I think that this is far more than what people are trying to class it as being a relief rally. We looked at a little bit of Elliott wave theory structure that could be at play potentially. And the exciting thing here is it would very much back up our crypto revival scenario. You know, we were looking at the possibilities of maybe that being the ABC, still could be, or perhaps something like this. Maybe that's just C into this. But the good thing here would be is if this does turn out to be the the revival, this potentially could just be one wave into third largest wave, so on and so forth. Now, I'm not an Elliotician, but Elliott wave theory is apparent. The markets do play out in threes consistently. Not to fill anyone up with too much hope. But again, I really don't see the 10, 9, whatever it may be, K calls. I think a lot of them are based on what's happening perhaps more broadly in the economy, which is very much a mixed bag, right? You do have some alarming signs, alarming things going on from an economic point of view, obviously driven by higher interest rates, but you also have a lot better than expected data. And actually, it was something Jerome Powell reiterated in his Jackson Hole speech. He said, look, GDP's actually been very strong. Regardless of all this, you had the Chicago PMIs that actually came right back up. So they went shot right down into depression levels or recession levels, straight back up into the kind of positive territory. So I think a lot of people, when it comes to economics, look at one thing and ignore the other. I think it's quite a mixed bag. Again, I think that you are going to end up with a 2008 style scenario, but right now you're late 2006, right? You've got a while, and if you look at what the markets did into that, they didn't crash until later on, until things kind of caught up, if that makes sense. And you've also got to remember, and this is the thing, interest rates up, markets down, right? Well, actually, over the last 40 years, every single time they've raised interest rates, you've ended up higher for the stock market by the time they've stopped up in interest rates than when they started it. Interesting. But we'll cover all that maybe in another video. So, Rektember, are we heading for it? Well, we're in September. September is probably the worst month, not necessarily in terms of performance. In fact, it is in terms of performance if you take the mean. However, they also have January, March, and arguably perhaps December as pretty bad months also, along with June. So let's take a look at how Bitcoin did in January. Go from the start to the finish. Where are we? We're up here. So Bitcoin in January went up 40%, despite, or 39%, despite it being historically a very negative month. In March, Bitcoin went up 23%, despite it being a negative month. It's going to be interesting to see how September plays out. Bitcoin can fix itself, but what it wants to not do, and at this point we're okay with a deeper C wave. We're also okay with if it does want to come and form, and this is your head and shoulders. This is a very skittish right shoulder. I'd like to see it a bit more pronounced. Maybe you get that in the coming weeks. I don't know. But there is a scenario that would see you have a head and shoulders, and depending on where you want to take the neckline, if you want to take it from here, that's going to likely bring you down to here. Okay, and that could be a deeper C wave. That would create an amazing buying opportunity. You're then going to go into what are historically the most bullish months of the year for Bitcoin, which is October, November. And then we'll see how December fares. December's historically a very bearish month. Actually, last December for Bitcoin, it did this. So there's always, seasonality is definitely a thing, but there's always factors that play into it. And I do genuinely feel like Bitcoin and crypto is on the cusp of global recognition. And that's largely going to be a driver of, not only do you have everything going on with BlackRock, we listened to Jay Clayton's comments on this yesterday, get a Bitcoin spot ETF approval eventually. You've also got things like the halvening coming up. We've done lots of looking into everything. We're not just bullish for the sake of being bullish. We have technical reasons why we're bullish. You're playing out in pretty much very similar fashion to what you've done previously. I genuinely still think that Bitcoin's in a bull market, guys. Okay, and until Bitcoin's negative on the year or really starts to invalidate trends, you can't really say otherwise. This was a bear. We assess as a fundamental change, and this is now the start of a broader bull market. Hindsight's going to let us know whether we're right or wrong. We'll see. Happy to be wrong. It's just my own thoughts and opinions. Altcoins, if we look at total 3 to exclude Ethereum, have just gone sideways. And actually, they often do, this is where you are, and you've got this to come. That's my general belief. That's what we keep preaching, I guess, on the channel. It's because we genuinely do believe it. And as always, money is where my mouth is. Let's move on to the week ahead. We know that largely it's a dollar story. Dollar up, strong tide against Bitcoin, Bitcoin down, and the dollar's been phenomenal. But is it going to continue to be phenomenal? Well, there's things like the yields you can look at for that. Not the US dollar, that ran into resistance, finding a bit of support here. The dollar could be playing a little bit of catch up from the 10-year. You are going to have a lot that's going to go into the dollar in the coming week. So this week ahead, there's not really a great deal other than the Royal Bank of Australia's rate decision. Things like UK construction PMIs, you've got US trade balance, US ISM service manufacturing index, a number of things, but nothing spectacular, which might be a good sign. You've Labor Day tomorrow, so the markets are closed. Then you've got CPI coming up on the 13th. Expectations are slightly higher. Remember, this is kind of what's given a bit of a boost to the dollar because, of course, if this is higher, it calls for further hikes. Further hikes could be warranted based on a stronger GDP and a better than expected jobs report, so on and so forth. It all factors in. Right now, the probabilities of a no hike is 94% and 6% so. But you've got CPI coming up, non-farms out the way, and that's maybe going to tip it. But I would say it's quite likely then, potentially at this point, not going to do another hike. That could see the wind put back in the cryptocurrency market. Sales, stock market has had a bit of a rest, but is now looking for a little bit of upside. If it takes this high out, you're going to see continuation. We've got higher targets for the stock market at around about 4,991. What do you think Bitcoin's going to do under that narrative? You can look at Bitcoin versus the stock market, and it's been losing ground against both stocks and gold, which is interesting. So something for us to watch. There's a lot for us to watch. I genuinely think people are being way too bearish. Again, instantly, this happens just like this and this. Everyone's calling for new lows. Full bear market back on into oblivion, and I just don't see it. And actually, it's interesting because this is an ugly candle, but you do get these candles. You can be hammering out a bottom. We're going to make up our own technical analysis. That's what we're doing on this channel, guys. Jokes. So you could be hammering out. You get lots of hammers. Real question is, do you take this support? That's what it's all about. Don't take support. Don't necessarily go short. But that was a hammer. That was definitely a precursor to downside. It's quite a mixed bag. You had them here, of course, massive hammers here. So on and so forth. So this could just be a hammer. You could end up doing something like this, which could form a right shoulder and see that downside. Deeper C wave. We're not too unhappy about that. Ultimately, I think Bitcoin potentially is very likely, I think, depending on what happens, to take 30K by the end of the year. And once it's taken that 30K level after banging its head on it for so long, eventually you will go through it. I always like to look at inverted charts. I don't think this particularly looks bad at all. At all, to be honest. That's just my opinion, though. Maybe I'll be wrong on it. There were a few other things I wanted to go into, but we'll probably save them for another video as we've gone on for quite a while. Keep your eye on Chainlink. Swift unlocks potential of tokenization with successful blockchain experiment, i.e. Chainlink. And you can see you've got some major financial institutions that are backing this, that are a part of it. We were going to play a clip, very interesting clip, but we'll probably save that for another video, maybe tomorrow, as this has gone on for 40 minutes or so. So the weekend, there's not much going on. Could see a bit of resurgence in Bitcoin. Dollar could potentially cool off. We'll see. You guys know what to watch. Ultimately, we remain potentially not short-term, i.e. in the next couple of weeks. I'll take an uncertain approach on that. and just watch what happens. But mid to long term, we think crypto and Bitcoin is going to do spectacularly. On that note, I'm going to love any of you. If you've enjoyed the content, like us, appreciate it, as a comment, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next.